Exploring the bizarre. Your e-ticket ride into the world of the paranormal. Strap yourself in as we traverse the universe exploring the unexplained. UFOs, ghosts, lost worlds, cryptozoology, as well as other dimensions. It's time to take back the night. Now, your electrifying hosts of Exploring the Bizarre, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
Now we go to Rio de Janeiro.
Boy, Tim, you seem to be having a blast. Dressed up in your short shorts and tank tops and sipping on a pina colada under a beach umbrella. You must really like it here in Rio, but don't you think we should do some serious UFO investigation? You know that there are more sightings here than anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, but look at all those sexy ladies in their thongs. What a trip. What a vacation. How can you think about UFOs at a time like this? Rio. We go to Rio.
But, Tim, we have a show to do. We have a guest on who wants to talk to us about all the sightings in this incredible land.
Hey, isn't that Kim Basinger walking by? She still looks pretty hot if you ask me. Oh, look at all these gals, all these celebrities. Wow.
Yeah. Whatever you say, but pay attention to those saucers in the sky or they'll come down and grab you and your drink. Remember what they did to Antonio Boas.
Tim, you're a real killjoy. But if you insist, let's get back to the KCOR radio studio then. Let me finish my pina colada first. Rio de Janeiro.
All right. Yeah, here we are back in the cold, dank Las Vegas studios.
Well, I'm in the colder New York City, so that's even worse. But and I know you're in Jasper, Indiana. But today we have a guest on who actually is in Brazil. And we love Brazilian UFO sightings. I mean, there's got some classic cases down there. We've done a couple of, we're friends with AJ, who does the UFO magazine, and we've covered a lot of the cases. I used to exchange, when there were printed magazines, I used to exchange publications, our little zines with other UFO groups all over the world. And there was the SBDV, and I probably got the initials wrong, but it was Walter Bueller who ran the group, and he had some really incredible UFO incidents. There's a lot of close encounters and landings and things like that, and we utilized a lot of his material. So we feel very close to Brazil as far as the UFO sightings go. But continue on and let me get out of my shorts here and get my jeans on. And in the meantime, you just tell everybody who we're going to be talking to tonight. Rio.
Yeah, I'm going to avert my eyes here. Well, Tim, I'm really happy because tonight we are talking to Thiago Ticchetti. Now, Thiago has been researching the UFO phenomena for over 22 years. He was born on February 5th, 1975 in Santa Cruz, Brazil. And as the son of an aviation officer of the Brazilian Air Force, he had the opportunity to live in a number of different cities throughout Brazil. After the death of his parents, he moved to Addlestone, England, where he stayed for 6 months. Now, upon his return, he moved to Brasilia, where he lives today. Now, Thiago is the co-author of UFO magazine and is the president of the Brazilian Commission of UFOlogists, as well as MUFON's assistant national director of Brazil. Now, Thiago has written 10 books on the subject of UFOs. His most recent and his first English book is UFO Contacts in Brazil, published by our good friend Philip Mantle of Flying Disc Press. And some of his popular articles are Human and Alien Sexual Experiences, UFOs Monitor Our Wars, and The Secrets of Area 51 Revealed. So, Thiago, thank you very much for being with us tonight on Exploring the Bizarre.
Thank you all, fellas. And
well,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I see, this is Tim Beckley here. I see that we cover some of the same subjects in our investigations. You have a book, Human and Alien Sexual Experiences. And we just did a book, I guess about 7 or 8 months ago, called Screwed by the Aliens. And also, too, we've covered, of course, Area 51. I guess you weren't out there to storm the gates, but then neither were I. Neither was the two of us. But tell us, how did you get into this? Did you have a UFO sighting, or did something land in your backyard, or what is a gentleman of leisure there in Brazil doing, investigating some pretty incredible stories?
Well, first of all, thank you to invite me to the show. And second of all, the drink of Brazil is caipirinha. It's not pina colada. Pina colada is in Peru or in Mexico. We have caipirinha.
In fact, you're right, because I just got here almost late. I was having a pina colada in a Peruvian restaurant. Yeah.
So in Brazil, caipirinha is much better. Pina colada is not bad. Caipirinha is much better. Well, I had my first and only sighting in '82 when I was 80 years old. I was born in Rio de Janeiro. Santa Cruz is the name of a city in Rio de Janeiro. I was born in Rio de Janeiro, and I was living there when I saw a red light coming descending from the sky and hovering a mountain we call Pedra da Gávea, and then this light get bigger and reddish and brighter and make a erratic movement and flow away to the space. That was my first sighting, and so far the only one. But my dad, as I said, my dad was a Brazilian Air Force pilot, and he loved UFO phenomena. So I start to read. When I learned to read, my preference was comic books like Spider-Man and UFO magazines. So since a child, I like UFOs.
Mm-hmm. Now, okay, so but it's quite a I would say a hop, skip, and a jump from having a UFO sighting and end up writing 10 books on the subject. How did you get involved as far as the organizations and all go? I mean, did you meet AJ, or did you buy a copy of the UFO magazine on the newsstand?
Well, I read UFO magazine from AJ since I was a kid. The UFO magazine has more than 30 years, publication for 30 years. So since I was a boy, I read it. And when I moved to Brasilia, in fact, I became a UFO magazine translator. I got some articles from fellows from all over the world, and then translated to the UFO magazine. And I meet AG, and then I became an international correspondent, and then I become so far the co-editor of the UFO magazine in Brazil. And then move on, I start being associated, a member of a MUFON, and I met Jen Hazan, and I made the course of the field certification. I done it, and I was approved, and I become assistant of AJ in Brazil.
Now, what were some of the early cases that attracted your attention? I mean, we talked about the Antonio Boas case. I guess everybody knows the story about him having an experience and going inside of a UFO and having sex with a supposed extraterrestrial lady. Are there other similar stories to that in Brazil?
Yes, we do have some cases. We have 2 cases in Brazil that the witness claimed to have had sex with aliens, just very similar to Antonio Vilas Boas' case. The difference was they not got blood from them, but they had sex with aliens, a female alien, and they pointed to the ballet and said, well, probably we're going to have a hybrid kid that lives in the stars or in some planet.
Now, do you find yourself that these stories are credible? I mean, do you give a high degree of credibility to them, or are there other types of cases that you are more involved in that you think may be more real? Or because I know a lot of people think that these are, some fantasy-prone people who are having these experiences, and I do know that some of them have markings or scoops on their skin, but it's a long way from having just a normal UFO encounter or having something land on the highway in front of you than having a sexual intercourse with somebody from some other place or planet.
Yeah, to write this book took 3-4 years studying several cases. All the cases that in the book are to make credible, because I tried to get information from other books, from another ufologists, from the witnesses. In this particular cases of sex with aliens, I got some information from the ufologists that researched the case. I didn't get in touch with the witnesses because they are dead so far, but I got information from the people who researched the case, and the report was very, very credible, very credible. They must be lying. Okay, there is this possibility, but in my opinion, they passing from an extraordinary event that was not make it up. They really, really happened to them.
And did they have markings on their body? I mean, was there some physical evidence that their encounters really did take place?
Incredible, not. This does have, in these two particular cases, they just have had sexual intercourse. That's all, like a man and a woman, like that. They didn't show any marks. We have other cases that we had marks in the skin, but not related with sex with aliens.
Okay. Okay. So, how about as far as we know? Of course, the case that took place there on the beach in Caloris many years ago, where people's blood was actually being sucked out of them. Apparently, I had many witnesses to that. In fact, we've done quite a bit of investigation and research utilizing some of AJ's material. Actually, would you say that's one of the most prominent and verifiable episodes in UFO history there in Brazil because of the number of witnesses?
Not only in Brazil, Tim, in the world. You are talking about the plate operation, Operação Prato.
Yes, that's right. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, it happened in 1977 in Colares and many of other cities in north of Brazil. Well, hundreds of people are afraid because they have been attacked by lights that shoot some beams of rays of lights that hit them in the arms or near the breast in a woman and took their energy. They said energy. They got tired, they got dizzy, and when these people went to the doctor, was discovered that they was suffering from anemia. They lost blood. So this airship, this aliens, this I don't know what was that, was sucking blood and energy from the people from the cities, and this case was so important and urgent that mayors from some of the cities asked to the Brazilian Air Force to investigate it, because people are afraid and leaving the town. They're moving the towns because of that. And the Brazilian Air Force send a crew. It was a high secret investigation. They spent several months in Colares and other cities in north of Brazil. They got pictures, they got films, and even Captain Wiranger is the leader of the crew. They got a contact with an alien. 5 meters. He stood 5 meters in distance of an alien being, like a gray. It was in 1977. The grays was not so famous as they are today. So this case had more than 24 hours of film, more than 500 photos, and more than 200 reports.
Now we've seen quite a few of the stills. Have you seen any of the films that were taken?
Yes, I saw when the Brazilian Commission of Ufologists was invited to by the Brazilian government and Brazilian Air Force to have a meeting in 2013. I'm sorry. They show us a number of photos and films, and they promise us that they're gonna publish, they're gonna uncover it, and we will be able to show to everybody. But this never happened. They kept the films, they kept the photos.
Were you impressed by the films? Now, because the photographs that are published, and we did a book called Alien Bloodlust. The photographs look impressive, but of course they're all lights at night streaking across the black background. So one could say, well, there's a possibility that they were done in the dark room or something. Were the films, did they measure up or surpass the stills?
You're perfect. But these photos are official from Brazilian government. They weren't fake. They weren't made by someone else. It was made by a photographer from Brazilian Air Force. And the film was much clearer, much clearer. You can see the shape of the UFO. You can see the lights around circling the UFO. And they just show us around 10 minutes of films. And we know they have more than 20 hours of films. No one knows where the films are. No one knows. They destroy it, or they miss it, or they just kept it under the sheet. So we don't know what happened with the films. But the films were very clear that what shows was not an airplane or a helicopter. It's something beyond this world.
Now, can you describe the objects? Weren't they shaped kind of like a refrigerator or something flying sideways?
A lot of shapes, a lot of things. The classic flying saucer, to the refrigerator, to the ball, spheres of balls, rectangles. Amazingly many shapes of UFOs, from different colors, different shapes, and different movements.
Now, didn't the main investigator for the military, didn't he later commit suicide?
No, it's a fake news, like we say today. It's not fake.
Fake news, yeah.
Yes, my father-in-law was a Brazilian Air Force pilot and knew Wiranger from the Air Force. And he told me, he passed away a year ago, but my father-in-law passed away a year ago. But when I asked him if he knew Wiranger, he told me, yes, I did. But what happened to him? Oh, well, he always had some kind of depression, and had problems with his family. So I'm not believe that he committed suicide. He committed suicide. I don't believe that he was murdered. as
committed suicide, right?
Many people said that he was
conspiracy theorists would say that he was murdered. And okay, now there's also another case I remember reading about. It's the night of the saucers, where the military actually chased these things for several hours.
Yes, it's amazing. It's happening in 1986. We call the Noite Oficial dos Ufos, official nights of UFOs, when more than 22 UFOs plotted in radar screens in several states of Brazil, and the UFOs were saw by some of the pilots, and from the land, from the person in the control tower in the land, and people in the city, they saw these UFOs. When the first sighting occurred in over Campinas in São Paulo, and two fighters was scrambled to pursue the UFOs. One of the pilots saw the UFO, and in one moment he had 6 UFOs in his left and 5 UFOs in his right, and they were so fast. We are talking about Mirage fighters and the F-5 fighters. They can reach the speed of sound, but the UFOs were so much faster than them that it was impossible to pursue.
Yeah, because I know there's I think there were some photographs too, right? There was some the military took pictures of that event as well, right?
No, we don't have official photos of this event, but we know that some of the fighters had cameras on it, so we have films about this pursuit. But we still were looking for, as a commissioner for Brazilian UFOlogists, we're still looking for and pressing the government to release these videos, because we know that exists, and the pilots involved in this pursuit, in this case, they told us that they had some photos and videos of it.
So now, what is the official word from the Brazilian government or the military on UFOs? I mean, do they take a particular stance on the subject? Is there a policy as far as UFOs go?
The only policy that the Brazilian government has is to make a report if you see something unusual, but the Brazilian didn't investigate it, because we're passing through a a lot of problems, economics, politics. So I don't think, and the government, the Brazilian government, don't want to spend time and effort to research UFOs, unfortunately.
All right, Tim and Thiago, I'm going to have to interrupt you here because we are coming up to our bottom of the hour break. When we come back, we will continue our conversation about Brazilian ufology. So stay tuned.
Now back to exploring the bizarre with two of the most electrifying researchers in the paranormal. Your hosts, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
Welcome back to Exploring the Bizarre. I'm Tim Swartz. Tonight we are talking with Thiago Ticchetti. Am I saying that right, Thiago Ticchetti?
Quite there. Ticchetti, but it's very nice. Very nice pronunciation.
Well, good old Midwest boy here. So I mean, I tend to.
It's better than in England. It's better than when I live in England. They cannot say Ticchetti, so I became Jack.
Oh, Ticchetti. There you go. All right. Well, and you are the author of the a new book, UFO Contacts in Brazil, published by Flying Disc Press. And where can people find that here in the United States?
Well, the book can be buy by Amazon.com.
Okay.
On Amazon, you can have it by hardcover or Kindle format.
All right, great. Now, I wanted to ask you, you approached the subject a little bit just before we had to go to our break. Here in the United States, a lot of UFO investigators think that the United States government and the military know everything that there is about UFOs, their origin, what they are, things like that. And they're just keeping it secret from the rest of us poor slobs. However, there are others, myself included, that think that the government and the military know absolutely nothing, but they're just not going to admit it because they know that that would create panic or bad feelings from the public, thinking that we've got strange things flying around in our skies that they can't do anything about. What about in Brazil? What do you think the impression there is when it comes to the military and the government? Do you think that they have more information than they're letting on, or do you think they're pretty much in the dark like the rest of us?
I'm sure that they're in dark. I know that Brazilian government research UFOs cases, some of them. Mm-hmm. But they stopped to do it in the beginning of the 80s. They stopped it. They just changed his efforts to another areas of the Brazilian development, like education and politics and stuff like that. We had the Varginha incident, Varginha crash here in Brazil in 1996. Mm-hmm. This case is already in my book. And Brazilian made a great effort to cover all the case, and the United States helped Brazil to do it because we have informations that the NORAD sent information to the Brazilian Air Force that an UFO had just entered the atmosphere and crashed in the city of Varginha in Brazil. The NORAD already knew that. The same second the UFO crashed, the NORAD knew that. And the Brazilians start to create a great cover like a Roswell, but just like a Roswell, we had witnesses, military witnesses, civilian witnesses, and they could not shut them out. So the Brazilian, from 96, they stopped to research it. We know that all the UFO wreckage from Varginha and the alien beings that we took, we recovered 4 aliens from the UFO crash in Varginha. Mm. And the UFO and the alien beings were sent to United States. We know that. And it's not coincident. Some years later, we sent our first astronaut to the space. The Brazilian first and the only one astronaut was sent to space in, co-working with U.S. government. So we gave you a UFO and alien beings, and you gave us a ticket ride to the space.
Now, that's a very interesting case, and I don't think that a lot of people realize, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I guess a number of the people, I'm thinking especially the doctors who had contact with that creature, that was the first one that was found, ended up dying mysteriously. Am I right on that?
No, it's not a doctor. It was a soldier. One of the soldiers that touched the creature, the alien. They touch without gloves or some kind of protection. He touched the aliens. The aliens was like a brown and smug skin, mm-hmm. and he touched it, and a week later he went to the hospital with a disease that no one knows what was that, and the family was very concerned about his health, but he died 2 weeks later after he touched the creator, and the doctor said no, it's like some kind of virus, something like that, nothing important, but he was burned in the special coffee made by Plumbium, like how do you say in English, chumbo, lead. It was buried in the coffee of lead.
Oh, okay.
And,
all right.
And when we do it, it's not to contaminate the area. If he just had a virus, why to be buried in a lead of in a coffee of lead?
Right.
It's not normal.
Well, and there's been other cases similar to that where UFOs and the things seen coming out of them have not been especially friendly, if not downright deadly to the human witnesses.
Yes, we have a very important case. Call it João Prestes Filho, that in 1948. He lived in a small town in São Paulo state, and he was walking in the street. That back that time the city was there's no electricity all over the city, so very dark, and he saw a light in the sky, and for some reason that we still don't know, the UFO just shot him in the arm. A beam of light, and he started to get dizzy and got fever, and his flesh started to melt, literally melt. It's like if he had some kind of a radiation contact with something, radioactivity, and his flesh started to melt from his bones. And he died a few days later. And this is one of horrible cases that happened here in Brazil.
Now, considering the size of the country of Brazil, how difficult is it to get reports to a more centralized location, like to yourself or other researchers? I mean, are you constantly running into reports that happened, say, like a couple of years ago, that you're just now finding out about it because it happened in some far off corner of the country?
Yes, Brazilians United States is bigger than Brazil, but Brazil is like a continent as well. Just Brazil is like a continent, and it's very, very, very difficult to us to know or get to know all the cases that happen here in our country. And we have a lot of cases, mainly in inside country of Brazil, in the north of Brazil, that people are so used to see UFOs, alien beings, that become a routine to them.
Really?
They don't want to report it because they see it every day. Every day they see strange lights in the sky. They see some being in the woods, some being in the street, and the Brazilian is not so development internet. Talking about internet, the Brazil is not so development like United States that everybody has access to internet. And in countryside of Brazil, inside country of Brazil, many people don't have cell phone, don't have internet, so they don't report. They see it. They see UFOs in the sky often. They see alien beings. They have a lot of cases, and sometimes we know these cases 3 years, 4 years, 5 years later when the event happened. So it's very difficult to research.
Sure. Why do you think that Brazil is such a a hotspot for UFO and other unusual activity. I mean, it's been this way for decades, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down any. I mean, do you think there's something special about Brazil that like a magnet that's attracting these things? Or, I mean, I know it would just be speculation on your part, but any theories?
Well, maybe they like our caipirinha. I don't know.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
But seriously, we have a lot of water, drinking water here in Brazil. We have minerals all of the country. We have forests, the rainforest, the bigger rainforest is here in Brazil. And some people say that it's because the minerals that we have in our land. I think that this could be the true, but I think it's most because it's the size of Brazil. And it's natural research of Brazil. I think it's because of that, and because of the size of Brazil, we are so big that we have a hotspot. We are a hotspot and have sightings every day that we can have.
Now, in your book, UFO Contacts in Brazil, are there any stories in there that are your absolute favorites? I mean, the one that if anybody asks you about the subject, this is the story that you're going to tell them because you love it. Well,
it's very hard a father choose one of his sons. But I do have some cases that I like. I like a case that happened here in Brasilia. Well, the plate operation is one of them. The night of the UFOs another. Varginha is another one. Mm-hmm. But one is particular happened in Brasilia, where I live, in 1996, when a UFO was saw by 4 military policemen here in Brazil, medicals, civilians, and one of the civilians was a professional photographer, and he took more than 36 photos of the UFOs. This photos is in my book. But the most important, one of the policemen had a camera. In 96, it's not usual to have cameras in Brazil. We don't have hand cameras all over the place. Today we have a cell phone that all cell phones has camera, and you can shoot photos and make films. But he had cameras because to film his approach, his investigations. So he has one of camera in his car. And he filmed the UFO. It's amazing. The UFO is like a cylinder, or some say it's like a cross, and some say that's like a hot dog. But in the film, in the sky was so clear. There's nothing in the sky. There's no cloud in the sky. The sky was so blue, and the UFO was so brilliant, a white brilliant, that was impossible to be in an airplane. And this sergeant, he was a corp. It's not sergeant. He was a corp. His name was Galdino. He made more than 4 minutes of the UFOs, of this UFO, and he shows for everybody, including his headquarters. He went to the police department and showed to everybody, and they asked us to investigate it, and we did. And we discovered that it was not on a plane, it was not on a helicopter. And in this photo, in the film, was so amazing that we're not saying that it was extraterrestrial, but was not man-made.
Right.
It's amazing. It's a great case.
Well, now, speaking of extraterrestrial, here in the United States, as you well know, there are still a lot of people who think that UFOs represent, I mean, strictly nuts and bolts a spacecraft with scientists or whatever visiting us from other planets. While others, and Tim Beckley and myself included, think that while maybe a small percentage of this could be true, that there may be other factors going on here. I mean, maybe more esoteric or paranormal type of phenomena going on. Is what about in Brazil? I mean, do we see the same thing, the same kind of opinions and speculation going on down there concerning the phenomena?
Yes, I think this thought is worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
Here in Brazil, we have. Well, I believe I know there's a lot of theories about it, but I still believe that many of the cases are being from another planet or another dimension. In my opinion, they don't want to get in touch with us.
Right.
They don't want, because if they do, they had already done it. I think they just come to our planet to investigate, to see how we are, how we are developing our civilization, and if
and
we're
to have sex with us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's very very interesting because. Science. I saw something like this years ago, that the human beings in the future will be a sexuality. They don't have any. They will not have sex anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's like kind of a development of the mankind. We're gonna be asexual. So. Maybe they are already there. They have to make sex with us to perpetuate, to keep their kind. So in Brazil, yes, we believe the same. Just a small percent of the sightings, we can say that it's unexplainable.
What about UFO magazine? You're the co-editor of this magazine. I mean, here in the United States, am I right, Tim? There's no longer any UFO magazines being published.
Well, we don't even know if there is no English-speaking magazine being printed anywhere that we know of in the world, unless you include the 14 Times.
Right.
There are, of course, magazines that are available online. But the printed magazines, they're all out of business. It's a sad thing. I mean, I was a course editor of UFO Universe for 11 years and put out the world's only flying saucer newspaper back in the 80s. That was the UFO Review. And it's sad to see that all these publications have folded with the advent of course, the internet technology. The last one to go was the magazine published in Australia called the Ufologist.
Well, what about UFO magazine in Brazil? I mean, how is it doing? I mean, do you still have a pretty good readership?
Yeah. Well, the UFO magazine in Brazil have been published in a row for 30 years.
Wow.
So it's the longest published magazine in the world. It's still publishing. We had some years ago the UFO Matrix from Philip Mantle. Now we have several e-zines, like electronic magazines, like UFO Truth by Tim. And but here in Brazil, the UFO magazine, we have a lot of readers. We still have a lot of readers. We sell around 6,000-7,000 copies every month of UFO magazine. We try to bring the ufology to all the society. We have a great site in internet about the UFO magazine, but it's very hard because no one's pay publicity in a magazine that deals with UFO. It's very hard to keep doing it. Sometimes have to put money from our pocket to publish it, to make a congress, to go to the congresses, to speak someplace in Brazil. We have to spend all our money to it. So ufology is not easy way. I don't live my living is not ufology. I'm not ufologist like a professional because it's not professional here in Brazil. But AJ lives because of UFO magazine in Brazil. So in Brazil it's very hard. It's very hard to keep doing. But we are doing a great job. I think we're doing a great job.
Well, it always has been one of the best magazines. When we get a translation of some of the material on the internet, but Brazil always has had some great UFO cases and some fairly decent UFO publications. Like I mentioned earlier, Walter Buehler, who put out a magazine both in Portuguese and in English, and shared it. Of course, in those days, there were about 125, 150 magazines all over the world that we exchanged with. Some of them in English, of course, and some in languages nobody that we knew of could understand. You know, I mean, just about everybody had a UFO magazine, and I think maybe France still has a professional publication. I picked a copy up while I was in Quebec, and that's about it, really, as far as the printed ones go. The rest of them are now online, and of course, there are plenty of them. There's a UFO magazine in India, and just about any country that you can think of, you can go online and find out what's going on.
Yeah, that's why the main reason that I wrote this book, because I have more than 600 books of UFOs.
Oh yeah,
and I honestly I didn't read all of them, but I have it in Portuguese, in English, in Spanish, some in French. I don't speak in French, but I miss it that the Brazilian cases had to be shown to the world. We just have the Buehler publication back in the 50s, and just that classic cases. You must know what happened now. That's why I wrote this book.
All right. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up here, Thiago. So your book is UFO Contacts in Brazil, published by Flying Disc Press. And Tim, great show tonight. And thank you, Thiago, for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
I go to Rio
to drink what? To drink what, Tim?
Yeah. Not a pina colada anymore. Yeah.
No,
okay.
caipirinha. You will be my guest.
and barbecue.
Brazilian barbecue, the real one.
That's right. The real one. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Exploring the Bizarre with hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz. They're taking back the night by jetting non-stop across the cosmos in search of the truly bizarre and totally unexplained, with you as their co-pilot. Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on Exploring the Bizarre and hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz, check out their KCOR Digital Radio Network page. Follow their YouTube channel at MRUFO 1100. Exploring the Bizarre.